Our speaker today is known to some of you because Joe because you have him in your class, and Joe Loconte, who has been a regular with us for 2 times now. This is his 2nd year over the past 3 years to be a visiting professor teaching a class in religion and public policy. As most of you know, this is a course that is focused on one of our major distinctive interests in the School of Public Policy at Pepperdine, and that is the role of faith for people of faith in the public square. His topic today, a Christian view of social justice, also takes its cue from a phrase that has been thrown around a lot, the phrase social justice, to justify a lot of things that may or may not adequately be flying or appropriately be flying under that banner. So I think we're all looking forward to his comments. Professor Loconte, have to remember that somewhere in my roots I must have an Italian somewhere there. So Professor Loconte's roots himself in the academic world are an undergraduate degree in journalism from the University of Illinois, and then he did a graduate degree in theology at Wheaton University, and is currently working on his PhD at the University of London, and is able to work Pepperdine in between his stints in London and work on his dissertation there. He is as a journalist, writes for a number of papers. He has done essays and op-ed pieces and editorial pieces in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, and a number of other lesser-known area-wide papers. He was deputy editor of the Policy Review in its early years, which is one of the outstanding journals in the area of public policy, and has regularly contributed commentary on national public radio, as well as occasionally in even places like, I think, the BBC and other places. So we're delighted for him to be with us today. His most recent publication in terms of a book is on the role of the response of the universities and others in Europe to the rise of Hitler. And because I don't have my notes in front of me, they're in my briefcase down below where I just left. It's the illusion, the
End of Illusions.
End of Illusions. So we're delighted to have, would you welcome Professor Joe Loconte.
Thank you, Jim. Can you hear me back there in the bleacher seats? All right. Thank you, Jim, for that kind introduction. Thank you for some old friends for making the effort. Thank you, all you students, for coming. I know it's a very hectic time, especially students in my class. You're expecting a merciful outcome, I know, by your appearance. I'll try to show mercy. It's great to have you all here. Thank you. I want to draw special attention also to some special guests. My father is here, and my stepmom, Dad and Judy. Would you guys stand up here just for a minute? You know, I come from an Italian family. My father, I'll just mention, he was born in southern Italy and lived in New York and Brooklyn, and eventually made his way to California, in large part because of Judy and the weather, he says. But the real reason he's here in California, being a New York guy, is that he is in the witness protection program. And he doesn't get out very often, so it's good to see you out and about there, Dad. So make sure you meet him. You know, I'll tell one quick Brooklyn story just to give you a little sense of the Loconte family heritage. My dad and my Uncle Vito, his brother Vito, or yes, there is an Uncle Vito in the family. For those of you who want to ask some tough questions. They're out as kids there in the 1940s running the family business. This is the egg delivery business in Brooklyn. And they go out in a storm, a fall-winter storm. Turns out that the storm turns into a hurricane. So you imagine little Mikey and Uncle Vito delivering eggs in a hurricane. And when he told me the story, I said, Dad, what was Grandma thinking, sending her little son out into a hurricane to deliver eggs? And he said without missing a beat, Joey, they raised us tough. So that's the Brooklyn attitude. They raise us tough. On to our topic, a tough topic actually, today, social justice. Let me just begin with a few examples of what many regard as the heart and soul of social justice in the United States today. A homeless shelter in Boston, the largest in New England, houses about 1,000 men each night. It offers them food, clothes, a safe place to sleep. There are no work requirements, no drug testing, no pressure to improve their education or literacy skills. The shelter's residents, many of whom struggle with a drinking problem, are known to spend the day across the street at a wet park where they can drink alcohol all day long, unmolested, and return to the shelter at night, no questions asked. An unmarried woman, Washington, D.C., has 4 children, the result of her relationships with at least 2 different men. She's grown up in a neighborhood in Anacostia there in southeast D.C., where there are no married couples, no intact families, and it does not occur to her to marry either of the men with whom she's had children. Her welfare payments increase every time she has another child, no questions asked. A heroin addict in Manhattan pays regular visits to a needle exchange program where he trades in his used syringes for clean needles. Many drug addicts, of course, share dirty syringes and contract HIV. The program directors are not concerned about the man's drug addiction. Their hope is that he'll avoid getting the AIDS virus by using clean needles when he shoots up. So he gets a supply of syringes to last him for another few weeks at no cost, no hassles, no questions asked. Now, these are not hypothetical scenarios. I have visited each of these programs. I've spoken with the people who run them and the people who use them. Each of these programs receives government assistance, and lots of it. Each is hailed by activists, by politicians and ministers as examples of government compassion and models of social justice. But are they? Are they? We can't really answer that question unless we know what we mean, of course, by a just society. Today, I want to explore what a genuinely Christian vision of social justice might look like and how it differs from what passes for social justice today. No nation, of course, ever achieves perfect justice for its citizens. A society that guarantees equal opportunities to all, a quality education, universal health care, job security, where all the traffic lights are green, where all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, all the children are above average. Such societies exist, of course, only in the minds of dreamy demagogues and in the fevered imaginations of presidential candidates. A Christian approach to a just society, by contrast, avoids utopianism and cynicism. It begins and ends in biblical realism. Call it Christian realism. Its view of human nature understands man's capacities as well as his contradictions, his dignity as well as his shame. It appreciates the limits of politics and the compromises necessary to achieve a measure of justice in a fallen world. Our proper aim is the elimination of particular injustices, writes political scientist Glenn Tinder, not the creation of perfect justice. Historically, the United States, I would argue, has been influenced decisively by this Christian vision. Yes, America has often failed to live up to its ideals, and it suffers from its own legacy of social evils, a fact described by theologian Reinhold Niebuhr as the irony of American history, the gap between our ideals and our actual history on the ground. Nevertheless, no nation has pursued the concept of a just and democratic society with greater energy and moral seriousness than the United States. That's part of the reason, by the way, just parenthetically, that America is worth defending in the age of terrorism. As Niebuhr put it, when the mind is not confused by utopian illusions, it is not difficult to recognize genuine achievements of justice and to feel under obligation to defend them against the threats of tyranny and the negation of justice, close quote. A Christian view of social justice is two-edged. It challenges political authorities when they fail in their fundamental obligations to safeguard the common good. It ensures that government plays the central role in defending man's natural rights with impartial justice. That's the political side.